Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Susan Murphy. It's day 6 of the partial government shutdown, and House Republicans say there will be no votes to end it for the rest of this week. On Twitter, President Donald Trump renewed his call for money for a wall along the U.S. Mexico border. He accused Democrats of obstructing both the wall and hundreds of his federal appointments. And he also claimed the DACA for Wall deal didn't happen because of a federal appeals court decision. But that deal fell apart in March, months before the Ninth Circuit Court ruling. PBS NewsHour will have more coverage of the shutdown coming up at 7 o'clock. California Senator Dianne Feinstein is calling for a Senate hearing on the deaths of 2 migrant children who were in U.S. custody. 8-year-old Felipe Gomez Alonso died in New Mexico on Christmas Day, a few weeks after the death of a 7-year-old girl. Both children were from Guatemala and had been taken into Customs and Border Protection custody after crossing into the U.S. with their fathers. The Trump administration is planning to open more migrant family detention centers to detain families together until their asylum claim is processed. Cronkite News reporter Charlene Santiago brings us this report near one of the centers in Pennsylvania.
70 miles west of Philadelphia, local activists gather once a month outside a detention center.
You've done this because you love your family.
Together, they voice their support for the families inside who fled their countries and are now seeking asylum in the U.S.
It's good to know that we're not alone, that there are other people who care.
The Berks Family Residential Center is run by Berks County and is one of only 3 detention centers for families. The other 2 are in Texas.
So I'm so excited to see.
But now, after a 42% increase this past year of families arriving at the border, the Trump administration wants to open more of these facilities and hold children with their parents for as long as their immigration cases proceed.
If they have an asylum claim, they can be detained until we can adjudicate that asylum claim. But, sir, that is the solve. We need the ability to keep families together.
Karen Celaya was admitted in Berks in 2015 with her then 6-year-old son. After her experience, she says any type of detention is unbearable for both the children and for the parents.
Más que todo es el dolor de ver a tu hijo, preguntarte, mami, ¿cuándo vamos a salir de acá? Eran preguntas que me dolía no tener una respuesta específica para él.
Celaya spent an unusually long time in Berks, 2 years, because she decided to take her case to court out of fear that she and her son might be returned to El Salvador. In 2016, she joined a group of 29 mothers from Berks in a lawsuit against DHS for what they claim was an unfair asylum interview process. Most of them, like Karen, were fleeing violence.
Yo pedí asilo porque por la violencia, específicamente a mí me había pasado algo bastante personal. Y pues sí, esa fue la razón por la que yo me fui. Yo me fui prácticamente para resguardar la vida de mi hijo, ¿verdad?
Ultimately, the lawsuit failed and Karen was sent back to El Salvador. Most families seeking asylum are held in custody while they go through a credible fear interview. If they pass, they're released and given an immigration court date. DHS said it was approving 90% of credible fear cases earlier this year, with an average stay of 14 days for families in fiscal 2017. But that was before the surge of families.
Apologize for doing for our job.
In the meantime, activists say they will continue to oppose any short-term or long-term detention and continue to stand by the families.
As people of faith, we feel it's important to make a statement and to let the families know that they are not forgotten.
In Berks County, Pennsylvania, Charlene Santiago, Cronkite News.
Illegal immigration has become an issue in the search for a man who killed a Northern California police officer. Corporal Ronald Singh was shot and killed yesterday after pulling over a suspected drunk driver in Stanislaus County. Officials there say they've identified a suspect and say he is in the U.S. illegally.
He doesn't belong here. He's a criminal. We will find him, we will arrest him, and we will bring him to justice.
Singh is one of 144 officers who had died in the line of duty this year. The National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund says officer deaths are up 12% from last year. Some Republican lawmakers are pushing for a ballot reform in California. It's a response to last month's failure of Proposition 6, an effort to repeal the state's recent gas tax increase. Reform supporters say state officials intentionally misled voters about Prop 6 with a vague ballot description. Currently, the state attorney general writes the titles and descriptions for ballot measures.
The Attorney General wrote a ballot title that did not include the words gas or tax anywhere in it. And we've seen this time and time again, where the Attorney General actually tilts the scales of the ballot initiative in terms of the outcome by the way it's worded, so that people don't have a clear sense of what they're voting on.
The proposed change would take the responsibility of writing ballot descriptions away from the Attorney General and give it to the nonpartisan legislative analyst. A lot of new laws will go into effect on Tuesday. One of them will make it harder to dodge paying tolls on California roadways. Starting January 1st, new cars will have to have temporary paper license plates when they roll off the lot.
It prevents drivers from evading tolls, and that's really the intent of the law, is to prevent anyone from crossing tolls, so that for law enforcement, they will be able to identify a vehicle, including toll agencies, since the vehicle will have an actual number or configuration of a license plate.
DMV officials say they have worked with car dealerships statewide, and businesses are prepared to implement the change in the new year. Air travelers won't be able to use the San Diego International Airport's economy parking lot anymore. The lot on Pacific Highway is now closed to the public. The airport authority is turning it into an employee parking lot. They say the conversion is needed due to construction on the south side of runways. Airport officials recently gave KPBS a look at the new projects. Reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
So a brand new parking structure just opened in May, and then about October our system went live. It's a rainwater capture system.
Richard Gilb, the manager for environmental affairs for the airport, points to one of the additions, a new filtration system that allows the airport to collect and reuse 300,000 gallons of rainwater.
Everybody likes a clean bay, just like us, swimming and fishing, so it keeps dirty water out of the bay.
The water is used to help cool the airport. It comes from the new Terminal 2 parking garage with 2,900 spaces. The garage includes charging stations for electric vehicles and an online reservation system. The San Diego Regional Airport is in the middle of planning a rebuild of Terminal 1, says Brandon Reed, Director of Planning.
We went out with an environmental document this summer. We've received comments, and now we're working with our partner agencies on the next steps of that.
Terminal 1 was built in 1967. The airport hopes to have a plan ready for the Coastal Commission to approve by 2019 to stay on track with opening the first 22 gates by 2023. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
A state feasibility study out today says it's too risky to develop a state-run bank for California cannabis. The cannabis industry currently operates in cash, with millions of dollars changing hands. Federal law doesn't allow banks to handle money from marijuana sales, even in states where it's legal. Today's report says a state-run bank would be too risky.
So when we looked at this from a risk perspective, we see legal and civil risks that are basically off the chart. So when we looked at this, the assets of the bank are subject to foreclosure. The assets that are used as a basis for loans are subject to foreclosure by the federal government. The staff of the bank is subject to criminal liability and could go to jail.
But state officials say an all-cash business is also a risk. Experts in the cannabis industry say Congress needs to change federal law so banks can work with them. The San Diego City Council voted last year to permit businesses in the marijuana supply chain. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen brings us this insight on the industry that's grown since.
So this is where Therapy Tonics holds all their tinctures and drinks.
George Sadler is showing me a fridge full of cannabis-infused coffee drinks. They come in flavors like vanilla caramel and Mexican mocha. The bottles are 4.20 ounces.
Intentional, I assume.
These drinks are made at Vista Prime. It's a cannabis manufacturing and distribution company based in Kearny Mesa. Sadler's the CEO.
These are finished cartridges?
They produce their own cannabis products like drinks, candies, and vape cartridges. They also package and distribute the good old-fashioned plant. Bags of dried cannabis flower line their storage shelves.
It comes from all over California. I mean, some of it comes from North and Humboldt, and a lot of stuff now is coming from out in the desert.
Vista Prime is part of a budding industry in San Diego, the cannabis supply chain. Since the city council voted to allow these businesses 1 year ago, it's granted permits to 11 marijuana production facilities. 3 testing labs have also gotten licensed. Sadler says for the most part, his hopes are coming true.
The industry is flourishing. It's being dealt with a bunch of really good business people. The support, you're always going to have negative. Doesn't matter what you do with marijuana, you're going to have negative. But I think everything that we're hoping for is coming true. It's just because it's a very hard road to get to this point.
Right now, Vista Prime has only temporary permission from the city to keep operating. It's currently going through a longer and more rigorous vetting process. Sadler's waiting for a permit hearing in November.
I've owned a few businesses, and this has been the most difficult process I've ever been through, bar none. Honestly, if I look back at what it's taken to get here, I don't know that I could do it again.
One of the most important factors in business in general is paying attention to opportunity and then acting on it.
Marcia Sarno owns a wholesale bakery in Mira Mesa. Right now, she does contract baking and makes muffins and pastries served in local hotel breakfasts. But earlier this month, she was granted a permit that will let her make cannabis edibles. The application was tough.
The process is responding to questions, filling out forms, having the city review them, come up with questions, have to respond to the questions, and that went back and forth like 5 times. You're talking about months of this going on and holidays in between, and then it was a big process. It was a big process, expensive.
Between fees and consultants, Sarno estimates her permit cost her about $100,000. And that's on the low end. She owns her building. Many applicants have to sign leases and pay above market rent on empty space while they wait for a permit that they may not ever get.
One of the things that I'm particularly excited about is the job creation here in San Diego.
Kimberly Sims is an attorney who represents Sarno and other cannabis entrepreneurs. She says it's fitting for San Diego to have its own cannabis supply chain.
And that doesn't mean that we're not going to have products coming from Northern California or the desert cities, but I think it's really wonderful that we can continue to build our cannabis industry right here, and again, upon the values that San Diego holds so dear, job creation and sustaining our local small businesses.
Your secret sauce, what form is it in? Is it in an oil? Is it an extract? Is it a butter? And it works in different products differently.
As Sarno shows me around her bakery, she admits she's brand new to the cannabis industry. She may hire an edibles expert to get started. She's also looking for a new space to relocate her existing bakery business. It's daunting, but she's ready.
I'm just happy, right? Really happy. I was just relieved and grateful and looking forward to the opportunities. As I told you, I'm not really sure what we're going to be doing over the next few months and how we're going to be transitioning, but I think that the opportunity is pretty extraordinary. I'm just really excited about it.
Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Some fortunate San Diegans may have found a new computer under their tree this Christmas, but not all families can afford one. For them, KPBS reporter Taryn Mento tells us about a cheaper opportunity that's still available after the holiday.
Low-income residents can purchase a used computer from the nonprofit San Diego Futures Foundation for about $100 to $300. The organization says hundreds of thousands of San Diegans don't have one. Marketing coordinator Teresa Valenzuela says smartphones may be popular, but a computer is necessary for tasks like writing a resume or a school paper.
We're talking students that have to go to school all day long. They come home, they have to go to the library, wait in line for maybe to be able to use a computer for 1 hour at a time because there's a line in order to do their homework.
The organization repurposes computers from the county, but only receives them when agencies get new ones, which can be sporadic. It's looking for more partners who want to donate their used computers. You can learn if you qualify to purchase a refurbished computer at kpbs.org. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Full disclosure, the San Diego Futures Foundation is a KPBS supporter. You might want to bring your pets and houseplants indoors this weekend. Erin Calandra has details on a frost warning issued for our area in tonight's full forecast.
Good evening. I hope you had a wonderful day today. You might notice the winds are kicking up just slightly, mainly to the north of us. We do have a high wind watch in place, mostly for Orange County, the foothills, those passes, canyons. That's where you could see some gusty conditions, around 40, 50 miles per hour with gusts up to 60 miles per hour. And of course, that could create some difficult travel for most people. Goes into effect at 10 p.m. tonight and will continue through tomorrow. In San Diego County, you'll notice those winds increasing through tomorrow. But weather-wise, it's quiet. We have an offshore flow, so more sunshine, clearer skies than clouds, and that's what you'll notice tonight. 45 degrees for the low. Temperatures are going to drop pretty significantly overnight because it is so clear out here. And where we do have temperatures below freezing, like Mount Laguna, for example, you should expect to see some frost. So bring your pets indoors, any kind of plants, you should cover them up just in case. Ramona close at 33 and Oceanside at 38 degrees with clear skies. Now tomorrow, again, those winds, they will be picking up. You'll notice them. It's going to be windy with an offshore flow, so we will have some sunshine, pretty pleasant conditions. Temperatures in San Diego reaching 62, Chula Vista as well, and also in Oceanside, 62 degrees. Ramona, just a bit cooler at 58 degrees. So looking ahead, the winds, they will increase through Saturday. Frost potential this weekend and in the mountains and into those valleys. Here are those future winds. Look at Borrego Springs, up to 24 miles per hour, and in Chula Vista, right around 6 miles per hour. Notice they'll kind of fade away, but then pick right back up. This is on Saturday. And again, isolated spots where it could be even gustier. Here's the outlook for the end of this week. Into the weekend, it's going to be quiet. Quiet conditions here in the southwest. Temperatures mainly in those mid to low 60s along the coast with sunshine. Inland will be in those mid 60s. Again, nice and sunny, breezy through Saturday. We're in the 30s in the mountains for our highs on Saturday, but then warming up to the 40s. And we'll be in the 60s in the deserts with lots of sun. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
Nearly a quarter of all Americans say they hold some amount of crippling medical debt. Associated Press reporter Vanessa Alvarez brings us the story of two former debt collectors who are giving back to those who can't pay their medical bills.
Reagan Adair and her family can breathe a little easier this holiday season. The Texas teacher started 2018 with over $3,000 in medical debt after years of migraines landed her in the hospital several times.
Then you have the doctor. Then you have the labs when you get blood work done.
Everything changed last April, and it's all thanks to a golden ticket of sorts and Good Samaritans from the charity group RIP Medical Debt.
It is the best gift in the world. When I opened this envelope on Easter Sunday, I thought, this is the sign God has sent this, and I am eternally grateful.
Medical debt burdens hundreds of thousands of Americans like Adair every year. The charity's founders, Jerry Ashton and Craig Antico, spent decades in the debt collection business, but then decided to put people over profits, working with the Occupy Wall Street movement. The duo estimate that more than 43 million Americans owe about $75 billion in past due medical debt.
So what we do is we identify the people that are either in hardship or poor, and we only buy those accounts. We don't buy the accounts that can pay, we buy the accounts that can't pay without hardship. And then, once we buy them, we wipe them out. We don't collect on them like we used to. We abolish them completely. Yeah, we put them into our debt cemetery.
Our debt cemetery, yeah, exactly.
The charity buys portfolios of past due bills for pennies on the dollar. Instead of collecting the debt, they send out letters letting recipients know their bill is paid.
The debt has been canceled and abolished by using a donation.
They say debt collectors want their money, and hounding people who can't foot the bill is a no-win scenario.
You actually take title of the debt, but you don't do it one at a time. If I went to a hospital and said, I'm going to pay you $10 for a $1,000 bill, they would laugh at you. But when you add $10,000 $10, now they're looking at you seriously.
For Adair, a Christmas miracle she prayed for. Less stress, nicer gifts under her tree, and maybe a summer vacation.
I don't care if it was the USPS and the postman was set up as Santa Claus. It was a nice and wonderful surprise.
Adding she's donating to the charity herself to help others, as she now owes a debt of gratitude. Vanessa Alvarez, The Associated Press.
I'm William Brangham. Tonight on the NewsHour, a view from inside the last rebel holdout in Syria as the Assad regime consolidates territory and the U.S. withdraws. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The San Diego International Auto Show opened today at the San Diego Convention Center. The show features more than 400 cars and trucks. Attendees can see some 2020 models before they hit showrooms. Local manufacturers, Auto Club of Southern California and STG&E are also featured there. The show runs through Sunday evening. But if cars aren't your thing, KPBS Arts calendar editor Nina Guerin has a preview of some fun things you can do this weekend.
Let's start with a visit from John Legend, the musician who recently became an EGOT, a person with an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Legend will be in San Diego over New Year's weekend, but he'll still be in Christmas mode. His legendary Christmas tour is an old-fashioned holiday extravaganza, complete with a full jazz band and backup singers. Expect Legend to perform original songs, plus newly arranged classics like Silver Bells and Merry Christmas, Baby. Also happening the night before New Year's Eve is a concert by legendary Los Angeles bands X and Los Lobos. X is one of the original punk outfits from the late 1970s that continues to perform 40 years later. Longtime members John Doe and Exene Cervenka are known for their harmonies and passions in songs like Hungry Wolf and Los Angeles. Over the years, X has evolved into other styles including roots rock and Americana. Los Lobos, a band from East LA, also formed in the 1970s and gained international stardom when the band was featured on the La Bamba soundtrack. These days, Los Lobos performs a blend of rock, Tex-Mex, blues, and soul. For something that's actually happening on New Year's Eve, my recommendation is Soiree on the Bay, a concert put on by the independent label The Redwoods. It's headlined by Danny Bell and the Tarantists, a local band that performs a modern kind of psychedelic rock. Also performing is another local favorite, the Midnight Pine, a band with a soulful, bluesy vibe. The event features other bands from San Diego's Redwoods label, and the party happens at the Lowe's Coronado, where there will be multiple rooms of entertainment, 2 balloon drops, and a sugar bar? For a comprehensive list of other New Year's Eve offerings, go to kpbs.org/events. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
Hollywood left a couple of cinematic gifts for audiences on Christmas Day. Cinema junkie Beth Accomando reviews Vice and If Beale Street Could Talk.
I haven't been a fan of Adam McKay's comedies with Will Ferrell, but in 2015, the director found a new way to put his comic skills to work by tackling complicated real events with a sense of humor that made them more accessible to the average person. The Big Short served up Bush economics for dummies, and now Vice does the same for politics.
I sense that you're a kinetic leader. You make decisions based on instinct.
I am. People always said that.
Yeah. Very different from your father in that regard. Now, maybe I can handle some of the more mundane jobs, overseeing bureaucracy, managing military, energy, foreign policy.
Dick Cheney went from congressional intern to arguably the most powerful vice president in U.S. history. McKay said he was intrigued at how Cheney's rise to power synced up with the Republican Revolution that's changed America. Vice connects those dots to deliver a film that's equal parts hilarious and disturbing.
I hope that nobody has ever had to look at anybody they love through glass.
If Beale Street Could Talk is about the wrongful imprisonment of an African-American man and the woman left behind to raise his child in 1970s Harlem. But in another sense, it's about much more. Barry Jenkins helms the first feature film adaptation of a James Baldwin novel and captures the rich complexities of the author's work. It's about the Black experience in America, injustice, family, and love.
Remember, love is what brought you here. And if you trusted love this far, don't panic now. Trust it all the way.
Jenkins is a visual storyteller, and his film is a cinematic poem that gives you goosebumps. If Beale Street Could Talk shows the power of love to transcend obstacles, and the outrage we feel comes from understanding what has been cruelly and unjustly taken away from this young couple. Jenkins sets a very high bar for future adaptations of Baldwin to Meet. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Tonight's stories are online at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.